Hello and welcome to video 3 of the OMT teaching series, The Translation Process. Here we go. Now before translation starts, you want to do 3 things. The first being the translators start an OMT path DTS. The translators have a clear understanding of the vision and method of OMT, as well as they will need to sign a memorandum which will give you permission to be able to use their voices in all future recordings. Moving on to the translation process, here is a visual that represents the 5 steps to the translation process, beginning with preparation. In preparation, the translators will study the text, they'll observe and they'll discuss keywords and context. They'll use resources that are provided. This is anything that the OMT base sees as important to equip them with the necessary tools. And then they'll engage in possible activities, which includes studying the word together, lively discussion around the word, as well as internalization of scriptures to help them get a better understanding of the stories and scriptures that they'll be translating. And then moving on to step number 2, recording. The translators will begin by inviting the Holy Spirit to be with them in their translation. One of them will be translating into the mother tongue, and the other 2 will be checking them and observing while they also fulfill their role in the translation. The scripture is read verse by verse, starting with the trade language and then the mother tongue coming after that. This is repeated, trade language and mother tongue, until the end of the chapter. Here we have a visual of the roles of the translators in active translation, beginning with translator 1, who is reading in the trade language, translator 2, who is translating into the mother tongue, and then translator 3, who will be on the computer managing the recording. It's important to note that translator 3 and translator 1 here are listening and checking in on the translation from the mother tongue speaker to make sure it is accurate and the translation that they agreed on together in their study time. Moving on to step 3, which is editing the recording. First of all, the recording is saved to ensure that it is not lost. Second, any repetitions, discussions, things that need to be edited out are then removed, leaving the final result being a bilingual verse-by-verse recording. You would also add any effects, including amplification, compression, and truncate silence to help with the editing process. Remember, this edit is a preliminary edit to send it off to the community. It does not have to be 100% polished. This leads to step number 4, which is sending off for a community check. A community check is where we take the completed bilingual recording and we send it off to the community for feedback and review. To note, there are 2 separate community checks which we are after. The first one is more of a language check which is sent to the general public. This is to ensure that the translation is easily understandable and we're not borrowing too much language, maybe technical language, from other languages. The second one is more of a content check which goes to persons of authority in the community and especially church or religious leaders which maybe even have previous experience in the trade language Bible. This is to check the content and the accuracy of the translation. The community listens to the recordings, discusses it, and then compiles the feedback and sends it back to the translation team. Next is step number 5, which is where we edit the recording for the second time. We re-edit once the community check is finished. More on this in document 10. Up until this point, the translation has been bilingual, but at this point we're going to remove the trade language, leaving only the mother tongue portion. The translation team will review any problems and re-record any segments if needed, leaving the final product, which is a natural sounding translated chapter. Here's an example of a weekly timeline of how you could structure your schedule as an OMT translation team. In this example, there is study days and then recording days with Sabbath on the Sunday. What's most important when building your schedule of your OMT translation team is that you adapt it to your cultural context and your specific team as well. All of this is set up to simply allow dedicated time for study and the dedicated time for recording. So don't be afraid to do something very different than what we have here. Some tips in recording is you want to take regular breaks so that you are not fatigued during the translation process. No more than 5 hours a day. And then a good goal would be 5 to 7 chapters per day. This has been video 3 of the OMT teaching series. Join me for the next video where we get very practical in learning how to set up the equipment.